So we had a couple of all black couches actually, we need an all black season of Dimension 20, so I created it. So the setting, we're doing Afrofuturism meets the New Negro movement. The New Negro movement is basically, while everyone is very familiar with the Harlem Renaissance, which obviously took place in the 1920s in New York City, where you have a bunch of black cultural and artistic leaders like really shining, really getting to work. However, the New Negro movement basically describes the fact that that phenomenon wasn't just limited to Harlem. So what if black Americans fueled by the New Negro movement had their own space program? This space program would culminate into the Benjamin Banneker's Astronomic Freedom Resettlement Operation, aka A.F.R.O. From A.F.R.O, basically, niggas go to space. We're like, we're out this bitch, we're sick of the racism, fuck the KKK, fuck Jim Crow, fuck all of that, fuck your civil rights, we're going to space. So black people basically colonizing space, they set up A.F.R.O on a planet, but they also have like, think the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, they're also having like space shuttles and all of these things, and it's rough. The first decades or two, because space is fucking crazy. Space is hard to live in. That's why we live on Earth. But people make it work, and after a couple of hundred years, A.F.R.O is thriving while the American empire as a country is crumbling. So the story is, you have people who've been living in A.F.R.O for generations now. All they know is basically, I don't want to say utopia, but they have like a predominantly black country in which everyone is just allowed to, explore their passions. It's a very matriarchal society, but it's not without its problems. So think Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, very much, self-sufficiency is very important. The fact that they haven't had a lot of contact with the United States of America or Earth in general for generations is like a point of pride for Afros. However, while issues amount, they are allowing the first non-Afro people to come onto the planet. And that is where our story will start taking place. Now, we have to have a DM, right? I know a lot of people, mind immediately goes to Abria. However, we're doing motherfucking Lou Wilson as the game master. So we will be using the same game system as Starstruck. And Lou, if you guys haven't already known, Lou is DMing a campaign on Worlds Beyond Number called the Icaron, where they use that same system. And if that's his first time DMing for like a public thing, and he's doing an amazing job. I love it so far. So Lou will be our game master. He's very familiar with the system, as well as thinking through how to like innovate the system for the specific world, because the Star 5e is made with Star Wars in mind. And so it has things like force abilities and things of that nature. But I think it would really be cool for him to see the world of Afro and be like, okay, niggas been in space for like 300 years. How might that change them physically? Next, the GOAT. We know we have Abria at the table. I can see Abria playing kind of like a paladin. I think she does best where she is supposed to be like a rule follower who slowly learns like, shit, I gotta break the rules. See again, Worlds Beyond Number, where she plays Suvi. So I could see her as being a part of like the government or something, and kind of begrudgingly, skeptically accepting the new migration program that they're having. Next, we have Ife. I think, he's really funny. When they did like O from the Black Keep in earlier season of Dimension 20, he did a really good job. He was a really fun and engaging player, and I think he would be just a little bit of like horny chaos that we all need. So I can imagine him playing kind of like, maybe like, I always feel like he does like the muscle bound guy, but you have to remember there is the kind of stereotypes or the kind of like racial understanding of blackness that develops on Afro is completely different than in America and on Earth. So I think if he's playing like a muscle bound scientist who is more interested in like the kind of like expanding the Afro settlement beyond the singular planet that their forefathers had kind of set up shop on. Next, we have Rayshawn Nadine Scott. I loved her in Burroughs End. I think she did a really good job. I believe that was like one of her first time playing. I know that was her first time in the Dome. So I think that she would do like really good kind of like leading some of like the artistic kind of movement on Afro. Like, what does the music sound like? Because if you remember, if they went up there like mid-19th or like 1900s, what does their music look like? Did they like independently develop kind of like space hip hop, space jazz? I don't know, but I think that kind of like think like Josephine Baker in space, like Nina Simone kind of vibe. Next, we have Persephone. Love her down bad. I think she also is a very direct and skilled player because I loved her in The Seven. I also think that, she's strategic. So I could also see her maybe kind of like, maybe on the other side, maybe like one of the rebels or broken off pieces of Afro that might be causing some problems. But she's like, oh, I don't believe in what the like resettlement government's doing, but what y'all are doing is also crazy. So I could see her character kind of being like a rebel who's trying to find the right cause. Then we have the lovely, the incomparable Danielle Radford. Loved her in Misfits and Magic both seasons. I think she's a really fun, bubbly energy. I think she is like the person who's appointed to kind of introduce the new migrants to Afro and kind of be like, Zeep Zorp, okay, this is what we're doing now. I don't know how y'all do it on Earth, but this is how we're rolling over here. And I think she would kind of be that bridge, but through being the bridge, because she has a fascination with Earth and kind of a fascination of also like, I think ancestor veneration is really important on Afro. But, you know, she's also thinking like her ancestors are from somewhere. Like, why can't we kind of learn and know about that? And I think over the generations of them being in space, they have their own mythology about what African Americans and what Black people went through on Earth. And so there's a lot of fear mongering that's actually justified, but I think also a lot of like funny misinformation. So I think her character would do really well at kind of like balancing the comedy with also the heavier parts of like grappling with legacies of like transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, and things of that nature. And then finally, Demi Adujibe, I believe that he will be the first person from Earth on Afro. I think, you know, he's a nerd and he's like studied and idolized Afro, you know, because like as America's still going on. United States is still going on while niggas are up in space. So I think there's always, especially in the African Americans who were like stayed or like Black people who are on Earth who never left and didn't have any way to, like, they missed the ship and they're like, damn, God damn it, I missed it. I think, you know, he kind of like, there's that idolization very, very much playing off Danielle in this season of being like, oh, I have misconceptions about you and you have misconceptions about me. How do we navigate that to get to the core of who we actually are? I think Demi would do a great job at playing like a fish out of water because he has all of our like cultural touchstones of what it means to be Black in America, Black in the world, Black on Earth. And then kind of being opened up to a possibility where niggas are just doing something completely different. So again, this would be my perfect all Black season of Dimension 20. Sam Rice, you can hit me up. You can hit me up. I'm ready to talk whenever.